Friends, did you hear the one about the recently released mental patient who had walked away from a defence job and turned up at a Quaker meeting? It's not a joke, it was me in 2000. Almost straight away, I was invited to lunch by an elderly and long-standing friend. In the coming years, I was welcomed into countless other friends' homes, despite having only a tenuous connection to Quakers and virtually no previous connection to the city. I was never made to feel anything but welcome. By 2002, I was accepted into membership. I don't remember a single occasion where I felt stigmatized or was aware of having my mental health problems held against me or trivialized. Maybe it was because I'm not very observant, but I feel I was just accepted. When I got ill again in 2005, after not taking my medication for months, I was visited every evening for the entire duration of my stay under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act by one of the friends who had been my visitor when I applied for membership, a kindness which I hope I will never forget. Mental hospitals today are not as scary as horror movies would have you believe, but they are still not the place most people would go to by choice, even to visit. They can be unpredictable and sometimes a little bit weird and unsettling. Most of the time, they are incredibly boring. After my 2005 stay in what I jokingly refer to as the West Wing, it's at the extreme western end of the city, I was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. In the years that followed, the friendship of my Quaker meeting helped me out of the hole I had found myself in, giving me things to do and including me in the life of the meeting. I served as an overseer, elder, and even did some clerking. My schizophrenia was chronic, but I felt the gentle encouragement of my Quaker community helping me to comply with my treatment and take responsibility for myself. I think this is a very helpful and not universally acknowledged consequence of humane mental health care. If you really accept mentally ill people as human beings, you must recognize that too little responsibility can be as harmful as too much. Eventually, there was an opportunity to apply for the role of Quaker chaplain at one of the city's universities. I felt a strong leading to do so, following the advice to live adventurously in the use of my gifts for the good of the community. I was accepted into this role, despite there being an arguably more qualified candidate who already had a teaching post there. However, I was able to devote enough time, roughly part-time hours, to treat it almost as a proper job. My brief was to provide a credible Quaker presence on campus. I was able to be part of the life of the chaplaincy, contributing in many ways, including talking to distressed students and staff on occasion. I did not disclose my schizophrenia to the general campus population because it didn't seem relevant and I didn't want to be treated any differently. On one occasion, I did some mental health awareness training and was preparing to disclose to a staff member I was partnered to that I was recovering from schizophrenia, when they beat me to it and they disclosed that they had discovered a friend in the act of suicide. I did not want to add to their burden with my problems. I'm still in touch with them and will maybe tell them someday, but I'm not in a hurry. Sometimes it is better to listen. My role of Quaker chaplain became a listening ministry for me. I trained in focusing, using Gendlin's psychotherapy approach, partly paid for by my meeting. I was guided in my listening ministry by the chaplaincy origin myth, the story of St. Martin of Tours sharing the cloak with a penniless beggar. I interpreted the cloak I would share as the shelter given to me by my Quaker community. I was also inspired by a quote from movie actor Michael Caine. "There is nothing in life that is so negative that you can't turn it into a positive." And then the pandemic and Ukraine happened. Chaplains are already at the margins of their meetings in some senses, and I found myself also at the margins of my chaplaincy, prevented from being on campus for much of the pandemic. After a couple of weeks of lockdown, I committed to providing a meditation every weekday online for students, staff, and local Quakers. I kept this up until the end of 2021 and then scaled it down somewhat, but I'm doing this still as I write. Because I had studied focusing, itself inspired by Rex Ambler's mention of it in relation to experiment with light, and loved it, I hit on the idea of studying a talking therapy to more depth and to have something to offer alongside chaplaincy. I decided on hypnotherapy. As part of my hypnotherapy studies, I offered hypnotherapy-based relaxation alongside my meditations to people drawn from my meditation list. I received my qualification in hypnotherapy around the beginning of the year, and I'm now considering setting up a private practice. This was an important leading for me, a continuing invitation to live adventurously, extend my ministry, and become more self-reliant. I also did mental health first aider training during the pandemic, paid for by the university. I've been supporting a local friend who has had a mental health crisis, including a hospital admission during the pandemic, to try to pay forward the visits I got when I was an inpatient. I'm thankful to have the opportunity to do this. It's the least I can do. I've struggled myself during the pandemic without the usual balances to my mental health. I suggest meetings think carefully about how mentally ill friends, chaplains, and others on the margins of their meetings might need more support at times like this. I don't know quite what comes next, but I have some good tools for helping other people with mental health problems. I am listening. Thank you, friends.